Welcome to the AcademyHub. In this first episode of series on economic discourse, we are going to deal with the plan of disinvestment in banking system by the government of India. As we all are aware with the fact that the finance minister, while presenting the union budget of financial year 2021 and 22, announced the plan to disinvest and privatize two of the public sector banks. This move was in accordance with the plan of monetization and to generate worth 1.75 lakh crore rupees. Here, we are going to decode the meaning, extent and scope of this plan and will try to understand the historical aspect of the policy. At present, there exist 12 government-owned banks including SBI and IDBI. IDBI is directly owned by LIC, which is a state-owned company, but recategorized as a private sector bank for regulatory purpose. The government plan to privatize LIC will by default privatize IDBI. Further, two more are from the list of remaining will be opted out and will be sold to private players. As per the move, government will sell its majority share and will thus lose the capacity of ownership. In turn, big corporates will buy the share and will gain the administration and ownership over these banks. Pragmatically, not only two but three public sector banks are to be privatized along with the top insurance company LIC. The inclusion of IDBI is clear, but the other two in the list are yet to be opted. This will be selected through a process in which the government think tank Niti Aayog will make recommendations. The recommendations will be further discussed by a group of cabinet ministers and thus the name will be selected. In 2019, government merged 10 PSUs into 4 and thus reduced the number of public sector banks. Government has been injecting continuous equity support to the public sector banks. As per the data of the Ministry of Finance, government front-loaded 70,000 crore of rupees in September 2019, 80,000 crore in financial year 2018. This support had required lot of taxpayers' money which could have been invested in developmental projects. Government wants to limit its interference in business sector and want its bare minimum presence. Public sector banks are suffering from high NPA and stressed asset issue. As these banks will be privatized, the burden of support will fall on the private players and government will have no issue to deal with. Thus, government will be able to concentrate more on the issue of developmental projects. Now, if we compare the performance of private banks and public sector banks, private banks' market share in loans has risen to 36% in 2020 from 21.26% in 2015, while public sector banks' share has fallen to 59.8% from 74.28%. For example, HDFC has a market capitalization of rupees 8.8 lakh crore, while SBI, the best public sector bank, commands only rupees 3.5 lakh crore. Aftermath of independence, the RBI, which was a private-owned bank, was nationalized by an act in 1949. In 1955, Imperial Bank was nationalized and renamed as the State Bank of India. On July 19, 1969, 14 largest private banks were nationalized. This move was in accordance with the socialist approach of the contemporary government. According to RBI Justice Series, the number of commercial banks was brought down sharply from 566 in 1951 to 91 in 1967 to consolidate commercial banking. Further, Banking Regulatory Act 1965 was introduced to provide extensive power to RBI as central banking authority. However, in 1991, with the opening of Indian economy and the introduction of LPG, commercial banks were reintroduced and several were established. Now, what was done in 1969, the present government is just undoing it. The issue is more of the political nature than the economic one. Several committees from time to time have given recommendation in their report to disinvest in public sector banks. Narasimhan committee suggested the government share to be 33% while PJ Naik committee suggested it to be below 50%. Lack of political will has been the hindrance to implement such policy, but finally the government has gathered courage to make the move. The jaundice issue with the private banks are that of a scam and corruption by the top officials of the bank. In recent days, Yes Bank, ICICI and Lakshmi Vilaj Bank faced serious allegations of such kind. It will be dubious for people to put their faith in private banks owing to concern over the safety of their asset. Thank you for watching this video.